As we saw in previous tutorials, the linguistic turn in analytic philosophy started out as the denial of metaphysics toward a logical reduction of the world and ordinary language, an endeavor which fell short of its intent after many failed attempts, and the final blow by Wittgenstein, who also initially defended this perspective. As he shifted language from something holding inherent meaning, a highly metaphysical, quasi Platonic aspect of logical positivism which went overlooked for decades, to a dynamic activity involving sounds and speakers within certain contexts, the entire analytic spectrum also modulated their research to deal with the ramifications of this realization, as we have begun seeing with Carnap later in life, as well as some other authors. American philosopher Donald Davidson was, like Putnam, another figure to adapt a later Wittgensteinian approach with Quine, altogether with Kant and others for this purpose. Though he very much agrees with the practical aspect of the second Wittgenstein and his teacher Quine toward understanding semantics, he defends a perspective of a mind, irreducible to physical phenomena, though differently from the metaphysical tradition. He advances Quine's coherentist approach to epistemology by stating that mental processes cannot be explained by scientific methodologies, given that both are part of the same thing. We cannot dissociate the method of analysis from the cognitive apparel performing such analysis. The mind is anomalous, filled with what he called propositional attitudes, or sentiments such as hope or fear toward given propositions, which cannot be reduced to a materialistic scientific perspective. He was heavily inspired by Tarski, a mathematician and logician who we shall briefly analyze in the relevant logic tutorials, who proposed the semantic theory of truth around the Vienna Circle era, which, as the name suggests, focuses on the satisfaction of a proposition according to its semantic context instead of an absolute truth. For example, with the sentence, Dave is a YouTuber, there must be a specific object, let's call it X, to which Dave and the predicate is a YouTuber is only satisfied if it applies to that object X, that is me. However, for Tarski, this was limited to formal language and not to our everyday natural language, a view that Davidson wanted to expand. Truth and meaning, for him, are elementary words which require no further definition. They are embedded in our utterances and how we act. Thus, his theory attempts to understand what meanings we construct through our speech in a coherentist circle. Against this linguistic grain, English philosopher Peter Strawson defended a metaphysics of the common sense. Also inspired by Kant and thoroughly criticizing Russell, Wittgenstein, Austin, and most of the analytic tradition so far, he defended the idea that a linguistic theory of meaning should be concerned with our everyday use of given concepts, instead of focusing on logic, science, and metalanguages. This fundamental transcendental structure of the meaning of concepts would be able to assess further philosophical knowledge from proper investigation, which would go against the later Wittgenstein's view that philosophy could only help us navigate through natural language, without generating anything new, a descriptive metaphysics. This non-sensory realm of meaning, or of concepts, as with Kant, would be dependent on our empirical faculties, which similarly to Quine, and in a way even Wittgenstein, would affect how we apprehend new concepts, generating a network of concepts shared by our fellow humans. Language, then, gives way to concepts in his philosophy of language, and thus he criticizes Davidson and others who attempted to correlate natural languages with the artificial formal ones of logic and the like. Strawson was a student of Herbert Peter Grice, who came to further criticize the analytic tradition through analyzing ordinary language within Austin's speech act theory, focusing on the intentional aspect of communication. His idea of implicature in conversations reflected this, in that ordinary speech implicated several unspoken meanings which we easily apprehend, such as understanding that when Dave is a YouTuber is uttered, someone is talking about a person who is human and capable of having the profession of YouTuber, even though most of this information is left out of the sentence. Contrary to the later Wittgenstein, for him, meaning cannot be confused with the mere usage of a word, so most of this post-philosophical investigations tradition in philosophy of language is actually confusing truth conditions of the semantics of a sentence with its pragmatic usage or its implicature aspect. Thus, there is no philosophical issue of using different words in different contexts, and a metaphysical approach to language is safeguarded, as certain words can indeed have an independent, invariable meaning, while having different pragmatic implicatures. There are several other debates, authors, and positions in contemporary philosophy of language, some of which we will see later, as they attempt to deal with language in a manner greatly interwoven with their logical theories. We will also take a look at some more recent authors as we delve further into contemporary philosophy, with insights as to what is currently being discussed in academia. In the next tutorial, we will take a look at how one of the Analytic co-founders revolutionized ethics through a linguistic analysis of how we use the word good, generating a new manner to study moral philosophy in the 20th century, metaethics.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.